in 30 years' time. So our politicians need to refocus much of their spending on education. Nature-based solutions, NBS. Well, we all know about this. We've heard about it today already, planting trees around buildings, green roofs, natural ventilation, recycling our rainwater. We should be flushing our toilets with rainwater where we have rain, rather than taking fresh water which is drinkable. Better use of timber in building and keeping our coastal areas protected by mangroves and artificial coral reefs, slowing down those waves that come basically in tsunamis and also in surges mixed up with tropical cyclones or flooding. We can do a lot to help that. And we need solar, wind, and tidal renewable energy. Number 5, we need to build and retrofit safe and resilient buildings. We need to create hazard-resistant buildings as climate-responsive architecture. We can't strengthen all key facilities. We can't strengthen all the buildings in the world. Of course we can't. It's far too expensive. But we can strengthen schools and critical facilities like hospitals and emergency planning centres and all of those places which are crucial for the whole well-being of an economy. So we've got to get on with that, strengthening and retrofitting. And we need to build and design and construct safe buildings capable of withstanding natural hazards. And this is the important point I put in yellow here. These risk reduction measures will protect lives and property, no doubt about it. They will stop this carnage from earthquakes and from flooding and so on and so forth. But they'll also reduce the amount of energy, money and resources spent on repairs and reconstruction. And that's a crucial aspect of getting a return on the investment. The 6th task, we're getting near the end now, is a very important lesson. Tackling climate change is, as Kofi Annan said, everybody's business. It's not just the business of the people in this conference. Therefore, to respond effectively, everybody's got to be involved in this. And I believe that one of the important principles is to use existing ministries, existing institutions, existing centres of excellence, etc. We can create new dedicated bodies, but there's always a risk. If you create a dedicated body with the job title on the doorway, we are responsible for climate change safety, other people can wash their hands and say, that's their job, not mine. It's everybody's job, and we need to have shared responsibility. The 7th task, we must consider the full life cycle of the building. When I teach architectural students, and I've got colleagues here who are also involved in teaching architectural students, we often start with the design. And we work through the design to the construction and the completion of the building. The education of architects and urban planners and engineers has got to go right further back to think about the transportation of building materials, the creation, the manufacture of steel, the manufacture of cement, etc., right through to building use. How is the building used? How is it maintained? Another area where there's often lack of investment, right through to demolition and right through to the recycling of those materials. The life cycle thinking has got to happen. And so we're going to have to stretch education before and after the design process and think of buildings much more in the round. And that will help us with looking at carbon footprints. The 8th task, 2 to go. We need to adapt buildings to respond to climate change. I don't know why I spelt that wrongly. And there's all sorts of things can happen. In our coastal areas, 2-story buildings to get vertical evacuation. If there's going to be a flood, climb up into the 2nd floor and make sure that that building is constructed so that waves can go through it without demolishing the building. Smaller windows, of course, to reduce heat gain. Our cities are full of crystalline buildings which are just really unsuited for high tropical heat loads. We used to have a saying in the 1970s, which I used to teach, buildings should have long life. Buildings should be loose fit. They should be adaptable for change. And buildings should be low energy. LL, LF, LE. Energy generation through small wind turbines, passive houses, high insulation, etc. An architectural revolution is underway, and we're watching it happen all over the world. It's very, very exciting. The ninth task. There are benefits from all of this, aside from buildings, and aside from settlements, and aside from cities, like improved public health. If we can get from new planting around buildings, cleaner soils, cleaner air and cleaner water, people will live longer. People will be healthier. And crucially, we're creating new jobs from green technologies. And this is going to generate incomes all over the world, particularly in India, where you're so astonishingly resourceful. So the green technologies are one of the big benefits of this whole process. And I believe there'll be enhanced political stability if we can help crack some of these crucial problems. Finally, faith, not negativism. There's so many people I meet when I'm talking in groups who are very negative about climate change. They say the battle's lost. The battle has not been lost. The battle is undergoing, and we need to believe that something can happen. And this is where my own faith, in my case, I'm a Christian, but I believe that many people of many different faiths share these convictions. First of all, we believe in stewardship of the environment, not ownership. I don't own land. I don't own air. I don't own water. I look after it. I try and conserve it. I try and act responsibly towards it. And we talked about climate justice this morning. And this tragedy that climate change is being felt by people and by countries who are not responsible for its generation. And that's a tragedy. My country, UK, pioneering a lot of industrialization, is deeply responsible, and we should be paying accordingly. We need to adopt these God-given nature-based solutions. They're crucially important, and we can learn from nature. We need to pray, we need to meditate for wisdom and protection. And the whole community of faith, of people of different religious faiths, needs to be united in adaptive actions. And we need to trust and have faith in our Creator, not negative resignation. And that just about ends my talk, but I do like Eleanor Roosevelt's quote, if you lose faith, you lose everything. We mustn't lose faith. We mustn't lose faith in ourselves, in our policies, in our future, and in our God. So summarizing, this session was about what are the required skills and competencies. Well, I've just got 3. We need adaptability and foresight for our architects, urban planners, and engineers. We need creativity, making a lot out of a little, and compassion to meet our present and future challenges. And we need tremendous confidence and great courage in everybody involved in a safe environment. I love Barack Obama's quote, "We're the first generation to feel the impact of climate change, and we're the last generation that can do something about it." That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
May I now request Professor Rajiv Shah to kindly share his thoughts and insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Menon. And it's always a challenge to talk after Jan. You heard how eloquently he has put all the different things within that 15-minute talk. So what I would like to possibly take some of the thoughts which he has given and link it with this topic, that strengthening resilience in disasters and conflicts in the climate change. 2 specific contexts to start with. Many of you might have seen me talking about the same thing time and again. And I try to re-emphasize and emphasize that the whole risk landscape is changing, especially after COVID-19. All different types of new risks are coming. It's not only just the infectious disease, lots of technological risk, like what you are seeing here, digital divide, power concentration, energy crisis, food pricing. So different geopolitical context we need to think in mind when we talk about the climate change and disasters. But in spite of that, you will be seeing that the climate-related or environment-related risks are always in the top 3 or top 5 in the global risk agenda. And this is really, this thing always bothers me a lot, that when we talk about the digital era, we talk about lots of technology development, but if you see the internet penetration, we say that now everybody is connected by internet, but which is not. If you see the actual statistics over last almost 10 years, both the internet penetration has been there, but the gap between urban and rural, that 15 to 20% gap, that remained always. So when we talk about an inclusive growth, when you talk about inclusive risk reduction, I think we need to consider about these two issues, like one is the complexity of the risk landscape and another one is this digital divide which we have between urban and rural area. The right-hand side, oh, can I put this in the screen? Sorry, I didn't notice that you have not been able to see the screen. So, I think okay, for the sake of time, let me continue Okay, let me just continue without... What I was trying to point out possibly a little bit more on the framework, which I say the GATE framework, which is governance, education, and technology. And when you talk about Ian talked about very importance of this governance and governance framework. So I think that particular governance framework is something I think gradually we need to change our ways of governance and the decision making. We often say that there is a very important need of open data, open governance, and open management. So adaptive governance, actually, we have seen that during Corona, how we have changed our different governance mechanism, different decision-making mechanism. The traditional, during the Corona period, there are many disasters which actually came in, and which we try to cope with new decision-making style and the new formation of new decision-making. So I think the adaptive governance becomes very, very important. When you talk about the education, again, we need to actually think about that we need to go beyond the traditional ways of education. The new generation, which is called the Generation Z, I think I personally talk with many of these young students and young children in the universities, and they have possibly a different, now you can see a little bit of that. So Generation Z is something which is very young generation, and they have possibly a different mindset. They don't need to be taught by somebody. You just give them a little bit of platform, and the self-learning, or what we call the immersive learning, becomes very important. And I share one of my recent experience in using this metaverse and the augmented reality. I did some work with the school children in Delhi, and I asked them to create a future energy station. And within 1.5 hours, we just told them that how to create the XR platform, the virtual reality platform. And within 1.5 hours, they could create a totally new generation of the energy station. So my point here is that, yes, just teacher-student relation and that providing some lectures to the children will not work. It has to be more participatory. It has to be more experiential. And the final one is the technology part. We talk about Society 5.0 in Japan very much, and why 5.0 is we started with the hunting society, which is 1.0, then then agriculture 2.0, then we had industry 3.0, and currently we are in the information age, which is 4.0, and what we are going in future is possibly 5.0. And we have also seen that during possibly post-COVID or during COVID, the technology penetration has become very, very important. It has gone, but again, I have to remind ourselves that it's not just the technology development which matters, how the technology can be more inclusive and bringing the technology to the people, especially to the rural population. I think that's one of the key issues. And for that, I think this science-based entrepreneurship, what we call involving the youth and the young generation in more developing some new emerging issues or developing some new social solutions, I think that's very, very important. So in summary, what I just told are mostly in my two recent books. One is on this emerging technology for disaster resilience, and another one is the Society 5.0. So I strongly emphasize that it's a combination. Ian pointed out in his last slide that what architect needs to do, what the rest of the society needs to do, and I fully agree with him. And I think that this whole concept of this governance, the participatory education, and the development of different types of technology, I think that can make possibly one step forward. So thank you very much for your kind listening.
Yeah. Thank you. Professor Rajiv Shah is a person who has actually published more than 65 books, last count. I don't know whether more books have come out after that, but one of his recent publications which has come out is on the metaverse and on technology solutions and all that. So when he talked about GET, the solution, and Generation Z, I think we should actually be looking at some of these solutions of technology which can help, because we need artificial intelligence algorithms, machine learning, robotics, UAVs and drones, because we know that even in many disasters, these technology solutions can really help, including embedded systems, sensors, radars, and all that. So, and now we also know about deep tech. So there are many issues which we need to also address, and I'm very happy that, he landed today morning, and, he will be leaving at 3:30. So any of you who would like to talk to him, please try and intercept him, during the next few hours, because he'll be leaving at 3:30. Thank you. Now, may I now request Christine, who is a geomorphologist and who is also an expert in the field of glacial lake outburst floods and also looking at technology solutions. And I'm sure that she's also very actively involved in looking at the GLOFs in the Himalayas. Over to you, Christine.
Hope my presentation will also show up on the screen. Otherwise,
yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation to come speak at this Congress. I'm really honored to be up on the stage with these eminent colleagues. And I'm going to go in a bit of a different direction. I am a geomorphologist. I'm a physical scientist. And my work is really aimed at understanding what are the processes that end in disaster. So how can we better understand the physical causes of disasters? And so the example I'm going to talk about here is extreme mountain floods, glacial lake outburst floods, and similar events. Yeah, so if we think about extreme mountain floods, we know these are a really important hazard, particularly in the Himalaya, as well as in other mountain regions. Uttarakhand has experienced multiple of these very disastrous events. We see two of the examples from Uttarakhand in these pictures here, from Kedarnath in 2013, and the Dali Ganga Chamoli flood in 2021. And these floods can come from a really wide variety of sources. The most well-known, the most discussed are glacial lake outburst floods. These get a lot of attention, but these are not the only sources of very large, very destructive floods. These can also come from landslide dams, rock slides, cloud bursts, glacial collapses, and really complex hazard chains. And because of this variety and complexity, these events are very difficult to anticipate. They can come from unexpected places, and they can come at unexpected times. They are not necessarily triggered by things like extreme rainfall. So for example, the 2021 Dali flood came on a clear day out of nowhere, seemingly. And if this will play, we can see just an example of what these floods might look like. We can't because it won't play, that's all right. Here we can see a picture of this 2021 Dali disaster. These are enormous. These are very extreme, very fast-moving, and very sudden onset floods. And what's important is to know not just why they happen, but also how they evolve as they travel downstream. The most destructive events are the ones that can travel tens to hundreds of kilometers, and they will change from their source to their impact zone. And so here we can see just a little cartoon illustrating that an event might start in the high mountains, but it's going to have its biggest impact far downstream where people are living. And what happens in between those two zones can be extremely important for the magnitude and type of flood impact. And this is something that, as geomorphologists, we do not understand so well at the moment. And so this is an advance that I think we really need to make in order to better understand these events. And so just as an example of some of the complexities of large floods, these are more than just water. These are not just a piece of water moving downstream and inundating an area downstream. These floods carry large amounts of sediment. This sediment can be very destructive. We can see an example of this on the right-hand side, where the intake tunnel of the Malamshi-Kathmandu drinking water project was largely destroyed by sediment burial in a very complicated event in 2021. These floods can also trigger landslides, right? We can see an example of this on the left-hand side of a landslide triggered by a glacial lake outburst flood. Extreme floods can be affected by our infrastructure, particularly hydropower projects. And this can both either reduce the impact of a flood or it can amplify the impact of a flood depending on the situation. We need to understand these effects. They're currently not generally included in hazard assessments, which is really hampering our understanding of the risk of these types of events. And so I've just described how difficult these events are, how complex they are, and how unpredictable they can be. One way to deal with this is early warning. And for events like glacial lake outburst floods, typically early warning relies on real-time detection and then transmission of a warning signal downstream. And so there's, of course, a lot of interest in this. There are a lot of systems that have already been set up, more being set up as we speak. Generally, existing early warning for extreme floods relies on what I call in situ monitoring. This is you observe a particular glacial lake, you observe a particular river. If you see something change, you say, oh, here's a flood, and you send a warning downstream. This works really well. It's great. It's relatively simple. It's pretty straightforward. However, okay. I think my microphone's still there. Okay. However, these methods are really, they're specific to a particular lake or river. If you're not monitoring a site, you cannot detect a flood on that site. And it is extremely expensive to cover everything, particularly in the Himalaya. We're back. Yes, and there's other issues with this in situ observation, particularly transboundary events, if data is not shared between countries. This requires putting equipment near the flood path, which is easily destroyed. And really, most important, it requires some anticipation of where an event might happen. So if you're not expecting an event, you will not be able to generate a warning for it. And this is a real problem, because many of these extreme events in the Himalaya are unexpected. And so if we think about what types of advances we need in order to do this better, in order to get away from this in situ monitoring, there are some potential technical solutions. These do not exist yet, but the technology to make these happen is in place. These are things that could be developed in the near future. So one example is doing satellite monitoring, using the increasing remote sensing, data availability, satellite coverage, combined with things like AI tools, automated processing. And here I'm showing an example from another Uttarakhand hazard. This is the Joshi Math slope failure. And we can actually track the movement of this slope prior to the crisis that this town experienced in 2023 using satellite imagery. Now this is looking backwards, not in real time, but there's nothing stopping us from developing the methodology to start applying this over large areas in real time. Another potential method to monitor large areas is using seismic data. And this is because large events like glacial lake outburst floods, large landslides, they actually create signals like earthquakes do. They cause the ground to vibrate, and this can be measured at very long distances. And so on the right-hand side here, you can actually see the seismic signal of the landslide that triggered the Tista River glacial lake outburst flood that happened last month in Sikkim. We could detect this up to 300 kilometers away. This signal that we see here is from Mount Everest in Nepal, and we can actually locate this landslide using just 3 stations to the area of the origin of this glacial lake outburst flood. This is currently not done in real time, but it could be. It's possible. And we can go even farther if we have enough seismic stations. And here's an example again from Uttarakhand. Here we're coming back to the 2021 Daliganga Chamoli event, where we took advantage in collaboration with our colleagues from the NGRI in India. They had a seismic network put out to monitor earthquakes. We could actually detect and locate this very large flood and see its progress down the river through time. We can actually track it. And so this is just another potential innovative early warning technique that currently is done retrospectively, but the technology's there. We could do this in real time moving forward. And so how do we make progress on innovative early warning, on increasing our understanding of the physical processes of these events? And here, really, events like these are really important. Communication, cooperation, and data sharing are really critical. We need the physical scientists to be talking with the disaster managers, talking with the architects, talking with everyone else down the chain of working on disasters. We also really need improved data accessibility and sharing. And this is a really important issue. The development of innovative techniques, the development of these potentially new early warning systems, these are not the work of one person or even one group or one institution. These require a lot of different people working together, and this cannot happen if data remain restricted and accessible only to small numbers of people. And this includes both international and interdisciplinary cooperation and data sharing. And just to finish, we've heard this already several times, but it's extremely important that we make these advances, and particularly in understanding these extreme events as climate change is changing these events. We can't rely on past events or on future events resembling past events. We can't extrapolate from our knowledge of flooding to estimate what flooding will happen in the future, because it will change. And the changes may not be linear. A slightly bigger flood can have a much larger impact, and we need to to understand the processes behind that. So that is the end, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, technology solutions for looking at disasters need to really look at the opportunity which is being provided by satellite imagery, by remote sensing, and also by a lot of other tools, including persistent scatter interferometry, using synthetic aperture radars or differential interferometry, using synthetic aperture radars, what's called DINSAR, or even INSAR. So there is a lot of work which is happening in terms of interpreting satellite imagery before, during, and after disasters. And I think, for the kind of technology support which is being provided by some of the leading institutions in the world, I hope that, we will also use the WCDM for partnerships and collaborations with institutions which are interested from many countries. In fact, today, the Charge d'Affaires from Togo talked about the opportunity for a collaboration with institutions which he is willing to also facilitate with his government. So I think that we should actually look at these kind of opportunities, because the SDG 17 on partnerships is the most powerful sustainable development goal. And I think we really need to look at that opportunity. Thank you very much, Christian. May now request Professor Vinod Sharma to kindly share his thoughts and his valuable experiences and insights in multi-hazard risk reduction in mountain states, and also skill sets and toolkits which are needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Menon. In fact, the earlier speakers and even the inaugural session, actually, it set the tone for the whole conference. And in this session, particularly, Ian Davis is talking about, his 10 points are, I think, very, very useful for all of us. I'm having a very small presentation, because I am working in Sikkim. Now I'm Vice Chair of Sikkim State Disaster Management Authority. And for last 30 years, I'm teaching disaster risk reduction. And in this conference, basically, we are talking about Himalayan states. So my focus will be on Himalayan states and what can be done. In fact, we have seen that this 2011 earthquake in Sikkim, that was the sort of beginning of disaster risk reduction in the state. And we, see the challenges, what were the challenges in response and in planning, etc. And that's why this session is important, because we are talking about what capabilities, actually, what type of capacity these states should have. Because you see landslides every day, you see earthquake-prone area. The vulnerability of this area is known. And we know that in all 12 states, Himalayan states, what are the hazards? Earthquake, landslide, avalanches, now GLOF. This becomes so, frequent that forest fire, climate change impact and forest fire is one of the major threats. So all these things we are seeing, and so we are coming to, we prepare a roadmap, and this roadmap was the same thing actually, which is we are discussing in this session, that what capabilities, where are the gaps, and what can be done, where we lack in planning, and how to involve communities, how to use local wisdom, all these things. And that's why I think now I think I will start with one important thing, that we are saying that these are Himalayan states, 12 states, but they are so, I mean, all the 12 states, there are so much similarity, there is so much dissimilarity. There is so much of, ecological variation. There is, ecological fragility. This is one thing, that all are fragile and ecosystem, it is a Himalayan ecosystem, but within Himalayan ecosystem, you see the different, in vegetation, in biodiversity, you start with Jammu and Kashmir and you come to Northeast, you see the variation. Then same thing is vulnerability. So vulnerability is also, the general vulnerability, we see that it is in seismic zone 5, it is in, landslide prone, but I think specific states are having specific needs. So I think the proposal which is given by our NIDM ED, that there should be a Himalayan, there should be a center or cell of NIDM which can look after Himalayan issues. This is very important. And after this earthquake, in fact, we also gave a proposal from Sikkim that there should be Himalayan Institute of Disaster Management in Sikkim. And this is also under consideration. So I think anywhere, it may be in Uttarakhand, it may be in Sikkim, but I think there is a need that as we have GVP Pant Institute, which is studying the ecology of the place, similarly, I think we should have institute which can evaluate vulnerability, because this vulnerability is again a very big topic. There is economic vulnerability, there is social vulnerability. We just talk about physical vulnerability, but there is so much of variation. Ian was saying about education, and I see that in case the state is educated, the vulnerability reduced considerably. So in 2012, we took a decision that in Sikkim, start from primary education up to the higher education, technical education, we will be having disaster risk reduction, and we are doing it in this state. Then this, the geographical area, the type of soil, geology, there are n number of factors which are giving different vulnerability and question mark, on the sustainability. There is agriculture, which is the main, occupation of these Himalayan states. And when you come to Sikkim, you will see that in agriculture we gained, a very unique thing in the whole country, that the whole state become organic. And in case Himalaya, because Himalaya is not for growing rice, and this is for medicinal plant, this is for, so I think we should see that Himalaya is a unique ecological system, and what kind of agriculture is sustainable. So sustainability is one of the very important issue in Himalaya. This I am talking that a dozen states, but all dozen states are not. There is similarity, there is dissimilarities. You take the rainfall, start from Jammu and Kashmir up to Northeast, how rainfall varies. You see the type of forest, you see this. So I think each and everything is different, and that's how, and same thing is wisdom. We have lots of wisdom, in this area, and that can also be studied. Then the impact of climate change, I think it is known from Jammu and Kashmir till Sikkim. In Jammu and Kashmir, our apple growers, they are facing problem. In Sikkim, we are facing, because cardamom is our main crop. And cardamom, the growth is now 50% because bumblebee is disappearing. And bumblebee is the pollinator, for this. So I think climate change is a very important thing in this sensitive ecological system. And there are cascading effect of climate change. It's not only forest fire, it is not only changing the soil and all these things. So I think we should see the vulnerability. We, calculated vulnerability index for different states, and we should not be happy that Sikkim is lower and Assam is more, because Assam is vulnerable, for flooding and all that, and that's why the vulnerability index, it is much more than Sikkim. But what I am saying is that, again, there is no uniformity in this. Only one uniformity is that it is prone to hazards. It is prone to high rain, and that's why we see every year there is big disasters, and all historical disasters are happening in the Himalayan states. And that's why we should know that these states are prone to earthquake, to landslides, to flood risk, and now the Gulf, which is a major threat, and we are facing it. So biodiversity. Myself and Ian, we were coming from Delhi, and he asked me again and again that whether you left your ecology or the background of ecology in disaster risk reduction, whether you left your biodiversity knowledge. I said, no, I think this is giving me, a lot of strength, because ecology and disaster risk, they go hand in hand. In case you are managing environment ecology, you are managing your, state. So I think Himalayan problems are important. Then governance is very important. In case, I will say that Sikkim, in governance, you will give very high marks, because the people, they understand that unless and until we keep it in priority area, we cannot manage. Then community resilience. I think this resilience will come by mixing two things, by educating them and knowing from them that the knowledge which they are having. SDGs, we are speaking since morning, that I think these three things will go together. SDGs, climate change impact, and risk. Sindai framework. So I think, India, we are working on all three things, but I fully agree with Professor Menon that this is an opportunity, this is the time actually for international cooperation. There is a lot of wisdom in small countries. Let us explore that. Let us, have collaboration with, and I think this is, in this conference also, it will provide us this kind of opportunities. Then the technology, innovation, this is the main focus. And our future challenges is that integration of these three things, climate change impact, and SDGs, and ultimately reaching to sustainability. So this is a very small presentation which I prepare for the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Vinod Sharma. Actually, Sharma Sab, Vinod Sharma Sab, I am Vinod Menon, and in the pre-event workshop which was actually held in Dehradun, there were three Vinods on the same panel: Vinod Sharma, Vinod Menon, and Vinod Paul from Niti Aayog. So there were three Vinods. So I'm very grateful to Professor Vinod Sharma for his talk, which is extremely valuable. And Professor Vinod Sharma and me were members of the High Power Committee for Disaster Management in 1999. And so we have been involved in the field of disaster management for a very long time together. And I think that, we learn a lot from each other during these kind of opportunities, and we look forward to interacting with you during that. Now may I request Lars to make his presentation. Lars has come from Geneva, and he was with UNICEF, and he's also now working as a consultant with several UN agencies, and also on climate change adaptation and also on disaster risk reduction. Lars.
I can see my presentation, so I was just wondering if someone can help me to put up my presentation. He's behind? Okay.
Stick, give me a stick.
No. If we have a USB, then we could. If apparently it's on this machine, but not on this one. I can do it from here. Okay, let me start. No, first of all, I would like to join the canon and thanks the organizers for bringing me here. I used to be Chief of Emergency and DRR in UNICEF India, country office, but recently moved actually to our regional office in Dakar in Senegal. And I wanted to honor a little bit the global connotation of this Congress because it's called a World Congress. Of course, we hear a lot about India, and I would fully agree. And I think this will come out as well in my presentation, that there's so many good examples and expertise here. I think Ian Davis referred to that. So maybe can I invite you to come to Africa, where maybe you could also maybe work at one point. So I didn't want to speak about India because I left it 4 years ago. I just wanted to invite you on a journey to learn a little bit some other perspectives regarding, my perspectives, my journey in DRR, starting after the tsunami. I don't know, can we put this up as well? It's not yet up.
Coming up. It's coming up on the screen there.
Oh, what do I have to do? Please help me.
Yes.
Oh, now it's coming up. Excellent, yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
It's a PDF file.
It's a PDF. I mean, I can do both, but... Okay. Basically, I would like to launch a Renote call for multi-hazard DRR. That sounds very basic and just, what's that? Of course, when you start into DRR, that's what you need. But basically, there's a lot of talk now in the UN and beyond about what we call a humanitarian development peace nexus. Some people like it, others not. And of course, we can add then the epidemiological control, which is, what we learned with COVID. And it sounds so basic and normal, but I think it's still not happening that much. So I want to invite you to the western part. Senegal is basically the most western part of Africa, for those who are not too familiar with it. And what do we face there? When you are based in Dakar, you focus a lot on the Sahel. The Sahel is a stretch of, it's not yet fully desert, but it's almost desert. It's not very green. And it's a very challenging region where you have a lot of heat waves and you have droughts, of course, but you have also floods and very much more erratic weather conditions. You see this here as well on the right side. You see basically the biomass production anomaly. So you see that anomaly is installing. It's getting more and more dry, but then you have also floods. This is a phenomenon which maybe you have seen for many years in Eastern Africa, but also in Western Africa, it's coming really very strongly. So there's a lot of climatic challenges. When you look now into global politics and what you hear about this region, you hear more about security challenges, about what some people call terrorist groups and other people call non-state armed groups. Basically, it's the ramifications actually of a whole breakdown of the Libyan regime, where a lot of small arms moved into the southern part of Africa, West Africa, and a lot of instability was created. And this instability persists until today. So the map on the left, you see actually the security incidents. It's just in the last few months in that region. And there is a lot of talk actually about spillover of this insecurity to coastal areas. And what we have seen in recent years was, of course, the impact also of the Sudanese civil war, where we have now some 800,000 refugees coming to Chad. So if we talk about DRR, of course, maybe you're lucky in India, but actually you also know in India there are some states where you have troubles, or what you want to call them. In the end, we cannot exclude basically insecurity or conflict issues, armed violence, when we talk about DRR, because this is how people are affected. And if we see now, on the one hand, the security challenges, on the other hand, the climate change challenges, and then we have old illnesses, which I basically experienced there. There's the absence of the state, low governance, multidimensional poverty issues, with a lack of functional basic social services, basically lack of health, nutrition, water, sanitation, and hygiene, and education and child protection issues with violence, abuse of power, lack of child registration. That's a child protection issue. If you are not registered, you will never benefit from any services from a government. You don't exist officially, child marriage. There's a lot of things you also have in India, but of course you have stronger government and you're fighting it. I mean, just referring to the ODF campaign, I mean, you made it, right? And this serves as an example to these countries where you also have these challenges. And then at the same time, you have a suboptimal disaster risk management system with limited risk-informed development, humanitarian, and peace programming. So a lot of what you have gone through after the tsunami is still there in very early stages, where it's still very much a response-based system. On the other hand, and that's the good part, and because I very much buy into that, even though I talk very negatively here, but we have to focus on the positive and certainly not the optimism, and really empower the young and vibrant population, a very young and vibrant population, to get opportunities, for meaningful involvement in decisions affecting their life. And sometimes, I mean, I experienced this in a country called Guinea, for example. The young stand ready with their shovels, or sometimes they don't have their shovels, but they say, we know the flood is coming. We want to clean this drainage channel, but give us some means. Not money, but some means. And this is what we are talking about sometimes. So a lot of distress migration happening as well to urban areas in these countries because the climatic situations are changing and because the security issues are there. And others go to Europe and sometimes, unfortunately, they lose their life on the way, which is a very perilous journey. Also some traditional mechanisms of basically the herders bringing down their cattle to more and more the coastal areas because the Sahel gets drier is creating new challenges. So this is just the landscape. Don't talk about the climate change trends. You can look this up, but it's a bit like India. I mean, things will get more extreme in both ways, flooding and drought and warming, also warming of the marine landscape, basically with impact on the fisheries, which is a major income, coastal erosion, humanitarian situation of the chart. You find this from OCHA. I don't have to repeat this here. A lot of internal migration, and it's not well managed, with a breakdown basically of the access then to schooling, to healthcare, and all these things. So a lot of challenges. So and then of course we had COVID. Just the last word on COVID, with a multi-sectoral impact. I mean, there were a lot of studies. And particularly, we were fortunate when I was based there that the health impact was not so strong on COVID, fortunately, because the health system is much weaker. But what we see now is that, of course, the routine immunization went down. Recovery took place, but also the measles cases, the yellow fever cases had spikes after COVID. So it might actually drag on for a long time. So with this little learning I had over the last 3 years in that region, it brings me basically to the capacities and skills from DRR, which was the topic of this session. And actually I stole some nice cartoons from a recent anticipation hub. So you see the collaboration, I put it up front here. And in my experience, what I want to share is a bit internal and external. When I was in India, I mean, my title was emergency, and at first I didn't apply because I'm not a response person so much as I'm a DRR person. But I still applied. And then I tried, my main work was really to promote DRR, or risk-informed programming, into the sectors UNICEF is covering. So we have health, we have nutrition, we have water, sanitation, hygiene management, education, and child protection and social protection. So it was a lot of internal struggle, and this gave me to these capacities. First of all, I mean, we have to apply common sense when we talk about DRR, because it is indeed everyone's business. We do DRR every day. But sometimes you have to engage people to let them understand that they are actually DRR practitioners and that they should promote this even further. Usually when I did workshops, I really wanted to have everyone involved. And then the UNICEF driver was contributing like the 20-year expert in health or whatever, because everyone has something. So let's just, we can convince everyone if anyone still needs to be convinced, because everyone has to say something about this. And then, of course, we need the complicated models Christian just presented. I mean, the real hardcore science and technical expertise. But then, I mean, I come more from a social science background, and this demands then that we bring actually analytical skills as well and have this holistic thinking. I mean, COVID is a perfect example. Whenever you look for an example, how to build a case for multi-sectoral work and multi-hazard work, because every sector was affected. So this should bring the ammunition for your argumentation that you cannot work in silos. I mean, you cannot stay in one sector. You have to work with other sectors and other units. I mean, and even in India, we were struggling. I mean, we were talking about health emergencies, but we were talking about public health in emergencies, meaning we have to get other sectors in. So we had some programs on that one while I was here. Learn by listening to the vulnerable groups and those with special needs. I was happy to notice in the opening that indeed we have a visually impaired person speaking, and this is what we have been talking about from UNICEF for child-centered DRR. There will be another session for this as well. You should really come to that with a lot of young people sharing their experiences. So risk and disasters, as we know, affect people differently. So we have to listen to these particularities. Don't copy-paste, of course. Be open-minded and understand what counts for whom. I'm still surprised. I mean, that people can be practitioners in DRR, but still they don't take a safety belt. This is the story. I mean, Ray, we have been talking about this, about school safety. I mean, it starts from home to school and back. So it's also the traffic accidents, yeah? It's not only how the school can be safe. So basically, I mean, look into, be white, yeah? I mean, when we did risk assessments, child-centered risk assessments in India, we focused a lot on lightning strikes because so many kids are drowning, drowned during religious festivals, crossing of rivers. So not the usual thing, not the big ones. I mean, we talk about the earthquakes and the floods and so on. And then, of course, what you need is the ability, and I'm still learning, we're all learning in this, I guess, to communicate, but also to reach out, to involve, collaborate, and learn. It sounds simple, but you have to involve people. I mean, that's really the thing. Otherwise, no one will listen to you. You do your thing, you're perfect, but what is attraction? And then, unfortunately, we still have to do advocacy, much too much. I'm fighting for this for so much. Let's reduce resilience instead of talk, but it's still an issue. So we need advocacy, negotiation skills, and really perseverance to change counterparts' DNA to adopt a comprehensive view into DRR. Ability to critically think, balance between short, medium, and long-term solutions. It was said as well, we cannot, one more minute, we cannot build walls against tsunami everywhere. We cannot protect this way the whole world. It's too expensive. What Japan is doing cannot happen in the east of India. It's too expensive, probably. So we have to have, the ability to do contextual cost-benefit analysis. So from the, let's say, simpler, I come to maybe the more complicated. And then strengthen indeed the practical skills and solutions, be inclusive. And look at this cartoon thing. Design a new future, a positive future, and shift gradually really to the solutions, to the practical stuff, and continue with the mushrooming, and eventually, hopefully, it will come to scale. So I will stop here with many thanks.
Thank you very much, Lars. I would like to share a very happy news that the success of the tunnel rescue will be communicated very soon, and we would like to compliment the government of Uttarakhand, the government of India, the NDRF, the SDRF, and all the rescue effort, all the institutions which have been involved in that. The 41 workers will be rescued, and then they will be brought out in the next few minutes. So we have received the good news. Thank you very much. Yeah, let us have a round of applause for the government of Uttarakhand, for the people and the families, and pray for saving every life in every disaster. The Government of India's National Disaster Management Authority had said zero tolerance to avoidable deaths in disasters. And we would like to keep that as a goal for every disasters everywhere, all over the world, all over the countries across the planet. Thank you very much. Congratulations and all the best. May now request Sri Rajendra Ratnu to kindly share, a wrapping up of the session highlights.
Thank you, Professor Vinod Chandra Menon, for giving this opportunity. And also thanks to Professor Pant for setting the tone and beginning. I'll just try to do wrapping up and also add some of my insights into what. So we had a great presentation starting with Professor Ian Davis, strategy for sustainable architecture and how to adapt to the climate change and how to mitigate carbon emissions. And I think all great people give 10-point agenda, because Indian Prime Minister has given a 10-point agenda, and we have one of the luminary of the academic world who has again given a 10-point agenda. So I think in such kind of, I feel sometime that we must have a small quiz at end of. I think we have to reimagine the strategies of our conferences so that people do not come only in the inaugural session, but there is an incentive to continue to stay and be a good listener. So I mean, so valuable thoughts are coming out from Professor Ian Davis. Let me try to have a quick wrap-up of the great ideas which he has thrown up. He has, put his 10-part strategy, which is, focusing on, key, safe and resilient buildings. I mean, he has given first about the importance of the key actors, including government, industry, everybody. He focused upon the local, that whether it is the local technology, which is a very important aspect. And I think it's the arrogance of science and the scientists that we are not thinking that what is local is not scientific. I think it has been empirically evolved over millennia. People have learned to adapt to their climate, and they have known it more closely than all of us who are doing armchair theorizing on behalf of them. So I think rather than always teaching to communities, we have to also learn from communities. And that is very important. Educate and train. And that is why that's the most important point for me, who is standing on behalf of National Institute of Disaster Management. We believe that often, like rescue operation, very important. I salute the people. But, the glamour is more in response. But I think where we have to invest is into education and training, which is not romantic, which is not so glamorous. But this is something which is really going to build our capacities and have a more resilient future. So he has also quoted, very nicely Socrates about lighting of a flame and not the filling of the vessel. And I think the similar sentiments are emanating from the Indian scholars, whether it was the Jainism, where the Syadvad theory in the Jainism says about, holistic thinking. It gives a story of the elephant, and I think the disaster management is also something like the elephant and few blind people trying to decipher what is the elephant. So one who catch hold of the tail says that the elephant is like a rope. One who catches hold of the foot says the elephant is like a pillar. But so that is what the specialization does. So I think disaster management is a multidisciplinary, so we have to break silos and come together for more holistic education to understand each other's perspective. Nature-based solutions, building and retrofitting for a hazard resilient building, use of the existing institutions, Well, here I have a slightly back to differ with Professor Ian, that yes, we need to use the existing verticals of governance as well as academia to make them realize their responsibility towards DRR and to mainstream that so that it is nobody else's responsibility. But the point is that to make them remind from time to time that you have your responsibility and where you are. We require some sort of a dedicated institution which should not be a vertical in itself. Like NIDM stands for a cross-sectoral organization which aims to mainstream DRR into every institution. So we do not have to have a separate vertical. We have to use existing institutions. But for using, and like our chair is chairing this session to ignite everybody, so somebody has to be there at helm of affairs to make people realize their responsibilities. Building life cycle thinking. So it is not only for building. I think this is the Western material economy and the philosophy behind that, which is driven by the basic fundamentals of, linear, cycle, which is responsible for the entire destruction of the planet. We need to go back to the Indian philosophy, the Eastern philosophies, which are essentially mimic nature. The circular economy is inbuilt into our, culture and nature, but somewhere we have lost in the romanticism or the glamour of the West that we have forgotten our tradition. We have to see that this linear economy is converted into a circular economy, and life cycle approach is not only for all resources, we have to see when we are using, and this change begins by not preaching, but by practice. I'll just like to give example that I had designed and run one of India's largest successful mass level behavioral change campaign in Kanyakumari district against plastics in 2009-10. And the mantra, the psychologist who inspired me was Mahatma Gandhi. We started by approach that stop preaching, only you have right to preach once you have practiced it. 2 months I practiced in the collector's office and bungalow that whether we can do away with, and then we gradually ensured that everybody practices first. And we today found, I'm sorry for the organizers to pointing out this thing, we need to have environmental audit of these big conferences which claim for great environmental and sustainability. We have used avoidable non-biodegradable wrappers for book release. What is the point of wrapping a book into a paper and then, struggling to unwrap that and then show a book? Why don't we have a small ribbon or something and to this thing? So let us have these events with a minimum carbon footprint, and how we are all emitting a lot of fossil fuel and, all kind of acts of affecting the climate, and then we talk not about Ian, Professor. It is just a context I am telling to every one of us and to time for reflecting. So adapt buildings to the climate change and recognize side benefits that this environmental approach does not have an impact only on your architecture, but on the health, on the livelihoods, on so many jobs creation, on the soil, water, everything. There is an impact. And faith not to negativism. Yes, I fully agree. But I think before that, we need to also have faith in ourselves and human action. A planet which was made for all the creatures and all species, this thing has been totally monopolized by one, species, human being. So I think when we talk about the faith, I think we have to encompass all other species and what they are feeling and thinking. So fully agree that there should not be negativism, but at the same time, I think we have to work continuously for the human action, and that will become when not with the technology, but a mass level social and behavioral change, which is very, very important. So thank you very much. I think I covered all the points, I suppose. And Professor Rajiv Shah, again, inclusive growth, inclusive risk assessment, adaptive governance, beyond traditional knowledge, and post-COVID technology operation and technology 5.0, and how it can be more inclusive, open source technology. I feel that we have to have more platforms for innovation which can be shared. I was India's former Controller General of Patent, Design, Trademarks, and all intellectual property rights. And I feel that while we have to encourage the innovation, I am not against patent. I recently had a workshop on how the technology can, faster innovation and onboarding of technology can mitigate climate impact. But at the same time, we also have to think about more open source innovation and sharing of this knowledge so that the global south can get benefited. Thank you, Professor Rajiv Shah, for bringing that. But we have to be little cautious that technology is a necessary condition, but not the sufficient. Yes, Chair has indicated me the time constraint. I'm just quickly running through Professor Dr. Kristen Cook. She has nicely elaborated upon the extreme mountain floods and understanding early warning and extreme mountain floods in the context of variety of sources, and therefore it's very imperative that our risk assessment and risk understanding and forecasting system also have to capture. And she has mentioned both about the in situ and the off-site risk monitoring. Professor Vinod Sharma, earthquake, Sikkim, and the learning from that, and he has put that roadmap developed by the Sikkim. I'm sure that this roadmap under his dynamic leadership will not only remain roadmap, but will be put on the road and reaches its destination, that is a resilient Sikkim. Lars Byrne, a very nice presentation again. Experiences from Africa, Senegal, and he has brought Sahel regions, very unique biodiversity, and also how the capacities and skills that are needed for DRR, including common sense, which is very uncommon among all of us these days. So that is the biggest challenge, how to get back the common sense, which our modern education has in some ways eroded. So again, looking back at our tradition and culture, I think we may get back the common sense. So analytical skills and ability to open up and adapt, ability to and willingness to communicate, and advocacy, negotiation, critical thinking, practical skills. These are the learnings from you. And I'm hoping that these points we take forward. And I think the learnings coming out of this, I hope that we are able to see that into actionable points, and the actionable points are translated into real policy and action plans by various stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Actually, so it is an excellent summary of the highlights of these sessions. Thank you very much, Mr. Ratnu. Now, if there are any pressing questions, any serious questions which you would like to take up, maybe we could take 5 minutes with the permission of all of you in the audience. 5 minutes, any pressing questions, or we could also do it on one-to-one later. Anybody who would like to? Yeah. Can you pass the mic? Yeah. Thank you. Please introduce yourself, and then you could ask the question.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dr. Rita Savla, representing Radhi Disaster and Education Foundation, and we are working specifically in disaster management, post-disaster trauma management, because after every disaster, whether it is road or earthquake or a cyclone or any disaster, we have a human injuries, and that needs to be taken care. Professor Menon just now said we would be having a zero tolerance and preventable death. And research what we have done and work what we are doing it, we have yet to come down with some scientific, holistic approach to the trauma, physical trauma management. I'm using the physical trauma not to get confused with the psychological trauma. So this is the completely gray area yet to be addressed. And India is, every day when we talk about the road accident, day-to-day disaster of 465 people dying because of the road accident, and we have no system to save them. And more than that, 1,000 people becoming permanently disabled. This is all preventable disability. So when country is not prepared for day-to-day road accidents are only 18% of the total accidents. So what
Is
about
there a
the mass
specific
casualty?
question?
Yeah. So
Dr.
my question
Dr.
is
Rita,
that
specific question.
when we are talking about the sitting in Himalaya, and we're talking about we all are concerned about the mass casualty can happen because of the earthquake. Sikkim is also considering about it. So what are our plan of action to address this?
Okay, thank you. Any other question from anybody? Yes. Can you pass the microphone that side? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm Professor M. Datta Chaudhary from Assam University, Silchar. Our Vice Chancellor, sir, is co-chairing this session. Just I have a simple submission to the panelists. Since morning, I have been listening to all the inaugural lectures and all the panel lectures. One thing I'm finding missing is the health disaster. We have seen during COVID-19 how disastrous it was. And we organized the pre-conference session of this 6th World Congress with an aim that the health disaster will also be considered as our conference, international conference was on antimicrobial research, and Government of India has prioritized antimicrobial research because in the name of Mission AMR. And it has been predicted that the next pandemic after COVID-19 is going to be because of infectious disease for antimicrobial resistance. So my humble submission to the panelists is that if the health disaster because of infectious disease and because of antimicrobial resistance is included, that will help, that will cover another dimension of the disaster. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. A very quick response to your question. There's a plenary session tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock looking at public health emergency disaster management. So these questions will also get addressed by the panelists and also by it's being organized with CDC India, and along with, yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It'll be there. There's a last question. Kindly introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Neha Jain. I am from Delhi and I lead a project called Climate Ready, wherein we train school students in government schools of Delhi to become environmental champions. And since you all focused also on awareness, training, education, my specific question today is to Rajiv sir, because he mentioned about virtual reality and he experimented it with the Delhi school students. So I would like to know how was the response and how can we integrate it across the Delhi government schools, because the project that I'm currently leading, this also has the potential to be scaled up across Delhi government schools next year. So I would be very happy to learn how to integrate it and make the collaboration happen.
Rajiv.
Thank you very much for that point. This actually exercise we did with IIT Delhi with their innovation hub. And I must say that we did it in one government school and one private school. But our experience with the government school was much, much beyond our expectation. And it was an age group of between 15 and 16-year-old. No, there were 14, 15, 16, so along that age group. And the imagination, I just give you one specific example. We talk about now the e-vehicle, which are usually charged when you have the consent. But they came out with that can we develop the parking lot as one of the charging point of the e-vehicle. And so then they actually developed this in the virtual reality platform. And then they told that how the energy will come there. So they put a drone there with a solar panel that, okay, the drone will be charged with the solar panel and that energy will come to the parking lot and that will actually charge the vehicle. So this we never told them. We just organized some of the element, but this is their imagination which actually they put it. So my main focus of this type of education is, this is what we call in Japan, we practice quite a bit, called immersive learning. So when the students are inside that particular whole process, the power or the creation is totally, totally unimaginable. Thank you.
Any other query?
Yeah, we are actually having a response to the first question by Dr. Rita Savla.
Yeah, you are right that road accidents is a emergency sort of situation every day. We lose so many lives, but I think it is also not very fair to say that nothing is being done. It's my duty, being only represented from Indian government here, to present the government perspective. The 4 E's which the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways is emphasizing. The first one is on education. There is large education material being generated and disseminated from various stakeholders, including investing into our young people. Second is engineering aspect, and it has a dual dimension. One is the road engineering, another is the vehicle engineering. And on both aspects, more stringent aspect on the airbags and the safety aspect of the vehicles, as well as the hotspots being identified and corrected and amended. Third is about the enforcement of the Motor Vehicle Amendment Rule Act 2019, focuses upon IT-based monitoring of the violations of the vehicles and also very strict penalties. And the fourth E is about emergency care centers being created. Large number of emergency care centers are being created along the highways and other areas. So these are the work in progress, and I think it is I think no counter this thing. We will have more time to interact over tea.
Thank you very much. We are closing the session now. Can we do it one-to-one, please? Because, it is already past 3 and, request. I would like to, first of all, thank all those people who have stayed back and then attended this session so late, because, we have actually missed our lunch, and then, it's been very, very late. But thank you very much for staying on, and then, thank the organizers and also the distinguished panelists. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now it's time to present Certificate of Appreciation and Memento to all the learned person on dais. For that, I would like to request Professor Durgesh Panji, DG, UCOST, to present a memento and certificate of appreciation to our chairperson, Professor Vinod Chandra Menanji. Sir, please. Huge round of applause. Now I would like to request Shri Anand Babuji, President DMEX, to kindly present memento to our co-chairperson, Shri Rajendra Ratnuji and Professor Rajiv M. Pant. Sir, please. Okay. Now I would like to request Shri Anand Babuji to present memento to Professor Rajiv M. Pant. Now I would like to request Shri Saviz Bansalji, IAS, ACO, Disaster Management, to present a memento to Professor Ian Davis. Now I would like to request Anand Babuji, President DMIX, to present. Okay. So please. Okay, sir. To Professor O.P.S. Negi. Okay. So Professor Rajiv Shaw. Okay. Dr. Kristen Cook. I request Saveen Bansal sir to kindly present a memento to Dr. Kristen Cook. Sir, again I request to kindly give the memento to Professor Vinod Kumar Sharma. I request Anand Babuji, Mr. to give memento to Mr. Lars Bund. Thank you all.
Coming to the end of this amazing plenary session, thank you everyone for your participation and engrossing us with your valuable lectures. Now we request everyone to gather at the food court for lunch. Thank you everyone.
With the panelists, yeah. The food is waiting. Please go back to the food court quickly, and in half an hour, the next session will start. The food court is in the next side. As you come out of the building, go right, and there's a ground. So some volunteers can help, please, for the new persons who are not aware of the place. It's about 3 minutes walk, 4 minutes walk, yeah?
हाँ मैं रेडी यार माइक तो आप ही लोगों के पास था
Check.
Hey, check. Sound. अभिषेक, ऑडिबल हूँ मैं स्टेज पे? ठीक है.
वॉकी टॉकी भेजा है, वो ले लो, आप बात करो वहाँ से. आ रहा है, भेज दिया. रवि लेके जा रहा है, रवि. वॉकी टॉकी जल्दी लेके दे दो भाई.
हेलो, check sound.
हेलो. वॉकी टॉकी लेके दे दिया, दे दो जल्दी.
आपको वॉकी मिला अभिषेक? ओके.